All right, so let's pick up this whole non-dual means of non-dual inquiry and break it down a little bit for people. The whole point of it, this is to understand, you've got to understand the objective, you know? Like, what's the point of a means of cultivation or a method of cultivation? It is to cultivate something. That's why it's termed cultivation. What do you cultivate? A seed into what? Into fruit. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a fruit of the practice. There's a goal to the realization. There's an objective. So non-dual inquiry, to approach life via that means of cultivation, means you want to cultivate your awakening, or to cultivate awakening to the true nature of life via the tradition of non-duality, Advaita Vedanta. So, let's look into it for a minute or two. If you could look directly at your life, the experience of being itself, and when I say your life, I'm not talking about the life you've lived up to now, the memories that you have, not the journey of your life. I'm talking about the direct experience of being here, the actual living force, which you call my life, which is taking place right now. If you could learn that that is where you operate, that is where your life is taking place. And when I say learn, I don't mean understand. I mean begin to operate your life from the ground of experience itself. From direct present experience. If you could learn to guide your attention and guide your focus and operate your body and operate mind and operate your intellect, here you would be operating in that which is non-dual. You would be operating as that which is non-dual. Consciousness itself, which is intimately connected to absolutely every atom in creation, with no exclusions. From that place, you will see how this consciousness falls into the illusion of a sense of separateness via the memory processes of the brain. But you will know that there is nothing separate. There is no separation anywhere. And because there is no separation, there is no getting lost. There is no awakening to non-separateness, because there has never been separateness. However, that's kind of I'm getting a bit too far ahead of myself when I start to talk about that stuff. So let's keep bringing it back. To establish yourself presently, and by yourself that means awareness, attention, focus, thinking, operation of the body, the movements of the form, the interactions of the form, the body, with the external environment. If your life was taking place immediately here, and one is operating clearly in this space of present awareness of life as it's happening, there is absolute clarity over what is real and what isn't. And by what is real, I mean the body of life, how the spirit is living via the matter, everywhere, all at once. And by unreal, I mean how the contents of the thinking are illusory and dependent on an individual, only exists within the brain of one body, one's own personal memory of a past and hopes and wishes for a future only exist inside the brain. and are therefore, the contents of them are like a projection or a virtual manifestation of consciousness, a thought. They are only contained in a thought. The thought is real. The experience of thinking is real. Obviously, the consciousness is thinking. But the content of thinking is illusory. It's formed via the processes of illusion. That's the objective. That's what it's all about. It's not anything else, and it's not complex. So what do we have to do then? Well, I was already explained. Learn how to train to operate one's life from here. What is meant by here? The life force that is flowing through all of the senses of the body is flowing through every sense of every body everywhere. So if one is awake to this experience, one is awake to the experience of everywhere. Within one's own present experience is everywhere that is here. That is the definition of here. The definition of here is everywhere present. Merely that one would learn to abide in and as the whole energy of one's own experience, not just the content of thinking. That's a very complex way of saying, get the fuck out of your head. Get out of your head. For a while. With all of the imaginings of life inside the brain, and all of the fantasies of human tradition and culture and memory and religion and science, theory, get out of there and get into the body of reality itself, not the psychological interpretation of the body of reality. That's it. It's not complicated, but it's a challenge, and it's a challenge to everyone. It's a personal challenge to you. Should we hashtag it? The latest trend on TikTok. The latest challenge is to get out of your head. And in that space, which is out of your brain, and it's not like it's not happening in your brain too, but, just get out of it for a bit. It's called getting out of the forest to see the trees, rising above the forest so you get the perspective of the whole forest instead of being so lost in it and not being able to see the entirety of the forest. And we'll round it out here, but another contemplation, we briefly brought this up the other day, If you are an individual on the earth at the moment, wherever you are, and you look outside, is it nighttime or is it daytime? So from your point of view, it's nighttime. And obviously, that's absolutely true. Or it's daytime. You look outside, either it's daytime or it's nighttime. And you'd have to be an idiot to try to deny that. If it was daytime and the sun was shining, then it's clearly daytime, So from your point of view, this individual point of view, it's either day or night. It can't be both at the same time, surely. And day turns into night. So you have this duality, clearly. From the individual perspective, there are lots of other beings and all sorts going on. But if you jumped out of that body and looked at the earth from space, it's simultaneously day and night at the same time. It's not two different things. Half of the earth is in darkness and half of the earth is in light at the same time. So it's one. Daytime and nighttime are two sides of the same coin. The head of the coin is not separate from the tails of the coin. So all of the individual interpretation of experience is based via that individual perspective, which is that's the only way for the brain to operate. The brain does not exist outside of your skull. So the brain is the center of the individual's perspective. And so if you base your interpretation of life on the individual's perspective, which means the brain, of course, it's a sense of separation in there. It's a sense of being an individual, because the brain only has one person's point of view. It's really logical and obvious when you see it for what it is. So if that's how you've been living, and instead you want to cultivate another perspective, the perspective of the totality, then you have to get out of the individual's perspective of the brain, which is what mindfulness is for. That's what meditation is for. That's what direct watching is for. And in that place, one intimately senses the oneness of all life. People call those things synchronicities, because it's like life is meeting itself. How come that body can have a thought and this one can speak it?
All the time.
Right. How come a thought can occur in that brain over there, but this one has a thought and then speaks it, and it's speaking the thought of that brain? Right. People call that synchronicity, but actually it's just the truth. It's one. It's one being operating through multiple bodies. And so as the being, the body, the person, the individual begins to operate more in the energy, consciously operate in the energy of presence, with other bodies that are doing the same, the oneness is recognized. It sees itself, it senses itself, it remembers itself. And that is called love. And that is the true condition of all of life. And yet the individual, to follow the illusory perspectives of the brain and the sense of individual, is what generates war, the opposite of love. Hatred for one another is where that leads. So clearly you're either going in one of two directions. And it's kind of funny that you can say that when life is non-dual, isn't it? It really is kind of funny that you can say that. You're either going in one of two directions in reality. Yeah? Anyway, try to get your head around that one.